Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today we have a pleasure to introduce you our professor of practice, Timo Veromaa. Many of you, of course, know Timo because he's originally from University of Turku, but has seen a lot of world after leaving us and then coming back. I suggest that Timo will present himself, so it's accurate, more accurate than my explanation. So Timo, please.
So thank you, Sirpa, and very good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. Today, I will talk about how we are building what I believe is going to be globally competitive precision medicine ecosystem in Turku in Finland. And I also will elaborate why Finland is a wonderful place for this particular exercise. The patient. I'm a medical doctor by training, and from my perspective, the patient should always be in the focus. Everything we do in biomedical research should be centered around the patients and close collaboration with the clinicians and with the physician scientists who actually see these patients and treat them and understand what is really missing today is going to be crucial if we want to be successful in developing new therapeutics to help patients. Working together is really crucial. Most of you will finish your grant applications by a statement as to how your particular research is going to be helping patient care, how it's going to be improving healthcare overall. But it's good to understand that it will require quite a bit of translation for us to get there and to make it actually happen. So I will start with a maybe a little bit broader introduction of my very self. I'll talk about the changing healthcare. I'll talk about precision medicine. I'll talk about why Finland is unique in this sense. And then we'll discuss a little bit the business of pharmaceuticals, because I believe that whether you are interested in drug discovery efforts or not, being in biomedical sciences, certainly, I think it's part of your education to understand what may lay ahead for your inventions and how they may contribute to the pharmaceutical business and the improvement of healthcare. We'll discuss some of the success stories from Turku and what we have on offer here locally as an infrastructure. I say it already now that I think the infrastructure that we have to support science is already magnificent and unparalleled to many other places in the world, compared to many other places in the world. But let's see if you will be as convinced. I'll talk about the newest kid on the block, the InFLAMES Flagship program, and then we'll finish with discussing what help, training, and education might be available for the budding entrepreneur in you. So here's a snapshot of my journey. I joined the biomedical medtech industry close to, it's almost already 30 years ago in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's been a while. I've worked in public companies, I've worked in private companies, I've worked in small and larger companies. I have been in executive positions, I've been in board level positions, and I've worked in several European countries in these positions, also in the US, in 2 different stretches actually, altogether in the Bay Area for about 10 years combined. Lately, I have focused on my board level work, but this spring certainly was very joyful, and I'm very thankful and grateful for being appointed Professor of Practice in Drug Development at the University of Turku, my alma mater. My PhD thesis is based on a chicken's behind. I was 100% focused on science at the time, and I was 100% focused on a science career at the time. I knew of nothing else. At the time, there was little exposure. There was actually no exposure to the industry. And the only career paths for me were to go into medicine or to go into the science. And I decided to pursue the science path with my very fresh degree in avian immunology. I joined Earl Weissman's lab at Stanford University. And initially, I had no clue how lucky I had been to be able to join his lab and how lucky I was to be at Stanford, which basically seemed to be like the epicenter of immunology. Wonderful resources, keen individuals who clearly wanted to achieve things and make a big difference in science. A great environment. What was a little bit odd to me at the time, at least in the beginning, was that how my fellow lab mates, many of them were discussing how they would form their own companies and how they would be very successful and maybe even rich. Maybe it was stemming from the fact that my then boss has and had founded a number of companies, and he had just sold one of them for what seemed to be like $1 gazillion. But that just seemed to be the normal course of business in the Silicon Valley. So a few years down the line, working happily at my bench, I got a cold call from a recruiter. And with some hesitation and even agitation, I joined Collagen Corporation, and I joined the biotech, medtech industry at the ripe age of 33. In terms of formal business education, I obviously had none. I had had no exposure to such. However, later I have been fortunate to have been able to complete the 3-year eMBA program offered by the Turku School of Economics. But then again, the eMBA thesis I only finalized very recently. So that particular degree is certainly very fresh. Coming back from the US after 6 years, I joined Sharing AG as a medical director based in Helsinki. But I was again fortunate enough to be able to maintain very close connections to the Bay Area via conducting clinical studies, transatlantic studies, and being part of the global development team based in Berlin and Region 1 in Sharing. I joined Biotie as VP of R&D. And then following several developments, I was then appointed the chief executive, and with my leadership, we concluded a number of M&A transactions and basically ended up transforming the company a number of times. And in the latest incarnation, we had a company where much of the operations were in South San Francisco. And we had one product on the market, and we had a late-stage clinical pipeline in neurodegenerative diseases, and pursuing those events. We even IPO'd the company on NASDAQ, and that's my 15 minutes of fame in New York Times Square, in the NASDAQ tower, NASDAQ welcoming Biotie to the US NASDAQ. Funnily enough, at the time, we had 2 Finnish companies listed on NASDAQ US, and one was Biotie and the other one was Nokia. Oh, I wanted to highlight one more thing, and this is an opioid receptor antagonist that we at Biotie spent quite a bit of time doing clinical development, both in the US and in Europe, in addiction disorders. And trade name is Selincro. We ended up licensing global rights to Lundbeck, who actually gained market authorization for the product, and it's still being available in the pharmacy shelf in Europe. My last day job was with Domainix, a fast-growing drug discovery service company based in Cambridge in the UK, where I was executive chairman. And I'd like to finish by showing we all have superiors, we have bosses. Here's 3 of mine. In the back is my darling wife, Rita. In the center, it's Weissman, having just been inaugurated an honorary doctor of the University of Turku. And the lady in the front happens to be my boss today, me being a professor of practice. But let's move on and discuss how we can move from imprecision to precision medicine. So what's ailing healthcare systems around the world? It's aging population, it's the rise of chronic disease, rise of chronic inflammatory disease. As you may know, many of the diseases today have inflammation in the background, be it Parkinson's, be it rheumatoid arthritis. And then what really is ailing us is that new technology, new products that are introduced, they way too often increase cost rather than lower costs for the society. And the biggest paradigm problem that we have in medicine is that our focus still is in treating rather than preventing disease. And we have clearly realized, and there's plenty of examples how one-size-fits-all medicine is really not an effective way to treat. I might dare to call it imprecision medicine because only a fraction of the patients get really significant benefit from their prescription drug use. And here are some examples. Let's look at the TNF-alpha inhibitors, which are very popular these days, bestsellers, like Humira. Only about 25% of the patients get significant benefit from it. And let's look at statins. Number 4 here, rosuvastatin. You need to treat quite a number of individuals to get significant benefit from to one individual. And the list goes on. So something really needs to be done. But luckily, the technology is advancing towards personalized or precision medicine. We have now improving molecular diagnostics. Whole genome sequencing is becoming cheaper and cheaper. We, in many countries, have quite extensive electronic health records. They are not always as well accessible as we should hope that they would need to be, but nevertheless, they are there. And we have recently developed quite a number of digital health tools to make this all work together. A few years ago, this term P4 medicine was coined, and was coined by Lee Hood, who is famous for putting together his Systems Biology Institute in Seattle. Here's Lee with his wife visiting Finland a few years ago. We put him in a boat, as we very often do to our guests, and he obviously loved it, like so many people do. So from Lee's perspective, he wanted to detect and prevent disease through extensive biomarker testing, close monitoring, deep statistical analysis, and patient health coaching. So predictive, preventative, personalized, and participatory. But the whole personalized medicine concept in terms of prediction and prevention was made hugely public by one particular individual, and this created an unprecedented level of awareness and interest into this concept, how you can predict and actually prevent disease via genomic information and P4 medicine, if you like. I've used 2 different terms here, personalized or precision. Maybe personalized medicine is a little bit of an older term, and sometimes it's been misinterpreted to mean that every individual will have their own individual medicine. That might be a little bit too expensive. So maybe precision medicine term is a little bit better in that it focuses on identifying which approaches will be effective for which patients based on genetic, environmental, and lifestyle factors. So your individual data should be put together in the context of data from clinical research, academic research, electronic health records, prescription records, and that would then lead to better outcomes, cost-effective treatments, genuine prediction and prevention, and healthcare transformed. We are in the middle of a paradigm shift, and one easily recognizes that we are not really yet there in the precision medicine where we would have all the reference databases, mobile information available, and whole genome data available in every individual. But we are going there, definitely. And the view of the future is really to have an integrated multi-omics topological maps of health and disease. And in some rare instances, in very advanced centers for cancer, for example, we are very close to this. But overall, in terms of medicine and drug discovery, it's still a little bit of a way to go there. Finland is unique. And for us, and at least for those living in Finland, you sometimes miss the quite obvious things, what makes Finland unique. And I'll just like to remind everybody some of the things before taking a deeper dive. So first of all, we have a stable society. We have clean nature, excellent schools. We're the happiest nation. But we also have science-minded citizens. We have unparalleled support for red biotech. And we have folks eagerly participating in clinical trials and finishing those trials. Everybody speaks English. We have electronic health records. We have biobanks. We have a highly digital society compared to many others, even in Europe. And also an important feature is that we actually have legislation that governs the use of digital healthcare, biobank data, and genome data. I didn't think I wanted to mention social distancing, but I will. When you look at, say, remote working or schooling, and I've talked to many of my friends in the US and in many countries in Europe, and this was all really not a big deal in Finland. Of course, it's been painful, but then again, just to keep things in perspective. By way of an example, I'd like to illustrate what is possible in our current environment, what can be done and what can be achieved and what is already ongoing. And I'll talk briefly about the FinGen research project led by Arno Palotie, who was gracious enough to share some of these slides with me. So FinGen, many of you are already somewhat familiar with the project, at least have heard of it. And it's utilizing genetic strategies to understand disease mechanisms. And this phase 2 should be finalized in the next 2 years or so. So the goal is to produce genomic data of 500,000 individuals in Finland, which is about 10% of the population. It's a humongous effort. It's one of the largest efforts in the world. And the real strength comes here from combining this genome data with digital healthcare data. And all of the samples that the FinGen is utilizing come from biobanks in Finland. We have altogether 11 or 12 biobanks in Finland, most of them public biobanks, and they're basically collection of samples and data gathered with tools and mechanisms to analyze them. They are not just depositories, but they're actively working science platforms. Funded by the hospital districts and the universities mostly. The Finnish Biobank Act, so the legislation is unique, it enables all this. It gives, it registers all biobanks, it gives wide consent, all of the donors give consent, and it protects the participants in ways that is not easily done anywhere else. And we have the unique possibility to recontact these patients, i.e. the recalling of patients is possible. And we can also collaborate with the industry to develop new services and new products. This is a public-private research project from between the academic institutions involved, i.e. all biobanks, who are led by academic institutions and the pharmaceutical industry. We have 12 global pharma companies involved in this process, and the funding for the whole exercise comes from 3 different sources. 20 million euros comes from Business Finland. This is taxpayers' money. And 65 million euros comes from these pharmaceutical companies to do all this work and then have this data available for all academic scientists and some pharma companies maybe even to work on the data and make new discoveries. We should not forget that there is also significant contribution in kind from Finnish universities, hospital districts, hospitals who put in an enormous amount of investment to develop these services, to develop these biobanks, and are doing the actual work of collecting the samples and analyzing a good chunk of them. So why this is being done in Finland? So we have many countries with biobanks, but we have much fewer countries where there's universal healthcare. So all of the population is covered by healthcare. Finland is unique by having a unique personal code that basically can be used to combine prescription drug use, even social services data, and longitudinal data, which is really something where we are unique. And I'm not going to talk about too much of the isolated population or the population bottleneck, but it enables us to find rare variants that either protect or lead to disease, and that makes the Finnish population unique in another sense. And I also already mentioned the recalling possibility. So this spring, FinGen has reached more than 300,000 genome and health data analyzed, and already now we have several novel Finnish enriched risk and or protective gene variants identified in all disease groups of interest in this project. So FinGen is contributing to precision medicine in 2 ways. It's enabling research to understand the genetic contribution to diseases and the genetic contribution to drug responses of the existing drugs. We have limited understanding of that for the time being. For example, blood pressure medication today is when you started on it, it's one of the biggest disease groups in Finland, and it's trial and error. We have no clue, we have no understanding which product is going to work for who. And also FinGen will then produce this individual genome data, which I hope that in the future will then form the basis for many medical decisions, which is not yet reality today, but I expect it to be, not maybe in the near future, but in the future. FinGen has a number of partners, of course, the companies and the other financing agencies, but the critical players in Finland are the biobanks. Auria Biobank, our local biobank led by Lila Kallio, was the first biobank in Finland, and if you ever want to do any research with Auria, just talk to Lila, and she'll be more than happy to help you. Auria has already now conducted more than 200 biobank studies, both with academic investigators and with the pharma and the diagnostic industry. So it's actively pursuing this. But sometimes you want to have more patients, more population, and looking at the world, Finland really is not that large of a country. So sometimes the unit of interest is Finland per se. And that's why the founders of Finnish public biobanks founded a joint operator, a company called Finnish Biobanks, FinBB, led by Marko Hautalahti. And this entity is supposed to help in harmonizing some of the data, help with quality, and help with the with various biobanks in Finland so that not everybody needs to reinvent the wheel. And most importantly, FinBB should act as the commercial window to the Finnish biobank data and help researchers, be they academic or from the industry, to see what's available and how it can be utilized. So here are all the hospital districts and the universities that decided to form FinBB, and the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare joined in the beginning of last year. FinBB has just introduced FinGenius, which I think is a genius name. FinGenius is the one-stop digital gateway to Finnish biobanks and biomedical research. When you sign up to this portal, you will be able to find out countrywide what is available in Finland for your research question, whether you're an academic scientist or a company scientist, and FinGenius will make it work. We've never had this kind of a one-stop shop before, but now it's available, it's evolving, and I believe it's going to be hugely interesting globally, and it should be hugely interesting for the local scientists. It's an evolving ecosystem, like all ecosystems, and there's close collaboration with FinData, the latest addition that the government has invented. I'm not going to talk about the Secondary Act and the role of FinData and what should be done about that, but let's put it this way, that FinGenius is at the epicenter of this whole business. So how has this all precision medicine and genomic data then affected drug discovery? If you look at tumor biomarker studies, proteomics, genomics, all that data has been generated. Then in terms of pathway-based targeted treatment, we've been very successful in oncology, identifying key tumor drivers or master regulators, looking at approved drugs. We've repurposed drugs and even developed new products. And there's a good number of success stories here. But immunotherapy has been in a league of its own in terms of precision medicine. And if you just look at the most recent Nobel Prize winning invention of using checkpoint inhibitors, the PD-1 antibodies, for example, it's a spectacular success story. A spectacular success story. And now I believe it's going to be interesting to see though how this is reflected in the business of pharmaceuticals today. And I'm going to give you a quick introduction as to where we are today in the world of pharmaceuticals. So the global pharma market last year was higher than $925 billion US. It continues to grow with a compounded annual growth rate of about 7.4%, so much faster than the economy. When we look at the breakdown of global sales, it's evident that 50% of the sales is in the US. It doesn't mean that the Americans eat all this much tablets. It's about the sales, it's about the value. This is not very different from any other high-tech market, but it's just good to understand what's driving the pharma market and where does the money go. Looking at the top 10 pharma companies in the last 2 years, we have pretty much a stable roster: Roche, Novartis, AbbVie, Johnson & Johnson, BMS, Merck, Sanofi, Pfizer, GSK, Takeda. And if you remember the members and the contributors to the FinGen project, a good number of these companies are already there. So the world's biggest pharma companies, they understand the value of combining genomic data, electronic health records, and biobank data to make new inventions, because there really is an innovation gap. They're investing more and more, and we are not getting as much new innovations to help patients as we would really expect to have. It's interesting to look at what are the top 10 products which are listed in the lower panel. Number 1 is Humira. It's a TNF-alpha antibody. The global sales last year was about $20 billion. One single product, $20 billion of annual sales. Some other picks, Keytruda, Opdivo. Do these ring a bell? If they don't, they should, because what are they? They are the innovations based on the Nobel Prize winning discovery. They are PD-1 antibodies. Keytruda sales last year was 14.4 billion, and Opdivo about 7.9 billion US dollars. So huge sales, huge successes, and contributing significantly to patient care. A similar table of the 20 most used pharmaceutical products. And what I've highlighted here, how many of them are antibodies, monoclonal antibodies? About half. So it's really staggering how many of these top products are antibodies. And rightly so, FDA just approved a couple of weeks ago the 100th monoclonal antibody for therapeutic use. 41 of them are in oncology, and the rest are widely dispersed in other indications. Are monoclonal antibodies precision medicine? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. One has to recognize that some of the immunosuppressant antibodies, for example, are rather sledgehammer type approaches, but they work. But I wouldn't necessarily call them precision medicine. They are not tailored to the individual patient. Some are, not all. The R&D spend is growing, and this is good for those of you who think that they want to be part of the drug discovery process and contribute and have your inventions contribute to new pharmaceuticals. And let's look at then the top 10 therapy areas in 2024. And in the y-axis, we have the worldwide market share. And on the x-axis, we have the percentage of sales growth. And you can see that oncology is in a league of its own. It has the largest market share of new pharmaceuticals or pharmaceutical market. And also it's growing very fast. The fastest growing is actually immunosuppressants and vaccines in the middle. You can see that for obvious reasons, they are growing. There's really a comeback of vaccines in the pharma markets. So that's a quick introduction to the pharma business. And I'd like to switch gears and just describe some of the success stories that we've already had in Turku, in Finland. And this data comes from the Turku business region. Very helpful, folks, if you are even the least bit of interested in business. So about half of Finland's pharma and diagnostic industry is located in Turku. We have more than 100 life science companies, and 3/4 of the Finnish pharma exports and 50% of in vitro diagnostics export come from Turku. And of the 22 marketed drugs originating from Finland, 21 out of 22 have been developed by companies operating in Turku. I think this is big. We have Mirena, Finland's largest pharmaceutical export product. The sales amounted to 1.2 billion in 2019. Obviously, the company is Bayer. Initially Leiras, then Schering, now Bayer. Orion is a globally operating pharma company based in Finland, and they've concentrated the early drug discovery functions and the biological and translational research in Turku, and have continued to make a significant investment in the area. It's going very well. And the close collaboration with, say, InFLAMES, I believe is going to be very good. More of that perhaps later. We have world-class diagnostics. Perkin-Elmer is a pioneer in neonatal screening with more than 600 people. They've added 150 new employees just last year. HiTest is a globally recognized expert in monoclonal antibodies and reagents and antigens. Radiometer has 220 people in Turku working on blood gas analysis primarily. Many of the companies have been very successful in the fight against COVID-19. I just mentioned the companies here: Artdia, Abacus Diagnostica, PerkinElmer again, HiTest, and Acquasense Health have been successful in this business. Pharon Pharmaceuticals is participating in 2 WHO projects, and Biovian just signed an agreement with the European Drug Development Company for the initial production of a COVID-19 vaccine pre-formulation, and they would have capability to do even more. The research infrastructure in the Health Campus Turku is really fantastic, and it basically stems from the concept of BioCity Turku. And if you live and work in this area, you should recognize that this whole concept is unique and makes interaction much more palatable and much more smoother than it is in many other places. It's an umbrella organization combining the forces of the 2 universities, and the critical piece of this infrastructure is the Turku Bioscience, which is a joint department housing all the expensive equipment and expertise and serving all of the campus, be it academia, be it the industry. Auria Biobank we already talked about. We also have the National Pet Center, which is a globally leading pet center in the world, led by Juhani Knuuti. And Eurobioimaging and the Bioimaging Turku, pioneered by John Eriksson, have brought quite a bit of new data and new thinking into the infrastructure. There's plenty others, so I'm not going to talk about everything else. We have significant facilities in clinical testing and disease modeling and whatnot. These are just some of the highlights. So I'm sorry I can't go through everything. But what we are missing here is the Finnish Drug Development Center, i.e. the infamous Lääkekehityskeskus, which we've been planning to be situated in Turku to serve all of the country, because it's been demonstrated that academic drug discovery centers are sorely needed to sort of to facilitate and sort of make these early scientific discoveries more palatable to the pharma industry, so that we don't sell them too cheap. So here are some of the local influencers you may want to connect to and ask what's going on. Why are we not getting any decisions? It's been ongoing for many years. Everybody else is doing it. There are several academic drug discovery centers in many universities around the world. So let's get the job done, and let's get this National Drug Discovery Center and Drug Development Center in Finland. Last, I want to introduce the new kid in the block, the Academy of Finland funded flagship program, InFLAMES. This is the new logo. I understand nobody's seen this logo before, so I'm very happy to be the one to introduce it to you. So InFLAMES is an innovation ecosystem based on the immune system. And the key objectives here really are to have breakthroughs in drug development, diagnostics, and precision immune medicine. And it's built on and based on excellence in immunological research and excellence in science, and going through the whole sort of a rostrum of what we have offer here, going from laboratory to drug candidates, to preclinical studies, to drug development studies, even to clinical trials, and then together with the larger pharma companies go into actual therapies. And what is really critical here is this new ecosystem and the close interaction with the business innovation platform here. These are the local life science companies. The host organizations are University of Turku and Åbo Akademi University. And of course, InFLAMES is benefiting from the vast research infrastructure already in place in Turku, but this one is focused on immunology because we have such a fantastic understanding and an innovation base on this, be it diagnostics, be it drug development candidates. And also the global pharma industry is going to play a critical role in this. The impact objectives of InFLAMES are quite ambitious. We're supposed to have a training platform. We're going to be fostering new public-private partnerships, increase the number of invention disclosures. We're going to introduce 15 new targets to preclinical testing and carry out 15 clinical trials over the next few years, and maybe even have market approvals. And the good news today from Faron on bexmarilimab on survival improvement in end-stage cancer patients is really good news and encouraging news for today. How to measure the impact? Some more simple terms. We want more of invention disclosures. We have a number of PIs in InFLAMES who have yet to produce one single invention disclosure, even though they are good thinkers. They have scientific innovation there. We want more innovation proposals, and we want business proposals and business ideas. And the key contact person there is Anne Marjamäki at the UTU Innovation Services. PhD student postdoc education is critical, hopefully facilitated by the visiting professors and professors of practice. And as a new addition, there's an industry postdoctoral program, and I'm aware of at least 2 candidates already interested or being in it, and that's very good news. So there is support for the budding entrepreneur, and it's available from the University of Turku Innovation Services, the same from Åbo Academy, and of course from Turku Business Region as well. Anne Marjamäki's team is available. Here are some of the folks that are working in her team on entrepreneurship, on IP, on innovation. So talk to them, and they are eager to help. So what am I supposed to be doing then? I come from the industry, so and being professor of practice, I should offer practical advice. And I may be helpful in recognizing commercial potential of your science. I should be able to offer hands-on practical advice in commercialization. I should provide the been there, done that know-how. And I'm very interested in mentoring. Low threshold, if you want to talk about career plans, just feel free to give me a ring. I'm not your supervisor, I'm not on your thesis committee, so maybe it's easier to talk to me than to somebody else. It's good to know that of the about 500 PhD students that we have in biomedical sciences, that not all of them are going to be principal investigators, but most will end up in the industry or in other public sector or private sector jobs. So it's good to understand what's out there and how to perhaps get it. And I hope to be able to contribute to business training and education on many levels. There's business training already available for students and staff in entrepreneurship, in business, in IP, and in law. So it's just that you need to find out what's available. So there is more help available these days than perhaps in the old days, when if you were trying to invent the wheel, maybe you were not fed. But these days we should be able to do that. What I'd like to do next is just to finish with a 1-minute video and use it as a refresher on why Turku is such a great place for biomedical sciences and biomedical research.
Health Campus Turku is the biggest center of health and biosciences in Finland. The campus houses, for example, the PET Center, which is a center of excellence in imaging, and Auria Biobank. Improving the quality of healthcare cutting of costs, and the development in the field of biosciences require the management of large data volumes. Turku wants to provide health and well-being in customized fashion by using big data. Local companies have been developing diagnostic methods in the Turku region for a long time, and the diagnostics industry has become an important employer and source of export income in the region. Health Turku is a strong international brand. Its operations focus especially on promoting business know-how and internationalization. The community offers companies added value through its global business and financing contacts. Academic research and growth-orientated companies have put Turku in the key position regarding Finland's pharmaceutical industry. Today, about 75% of Finnish pharmaceutical export is generated in Health Turku.
So the Health Campus Turku is like the umbrella organization here. They have people who are eager to help and point you to the right direction. Same with Turku Business Region. And I believe that InFLAMES is going to make a change in all of this. Thank you very much.